$5 trillion every single year worth of goods coming from all around the world to and from China goes through and has to pass through the South China Sea. Now, this is not a political episode, but I want you guys to keep this in mind. And pardon me for speaking a little bit quickly because I got to take care of this as quickly as possible simply for the fact that this ties into so many things. Now, before I start, I just want to give a shout out to a few people. First off is a young gentleman by the name of Andrew Ordaz. Hopefully I said his last name correctly. This guy's fantastic. He's a fan of the show. He's making videos on Instagram where he's talking about spreading the truth. And what I like about him so much is that what he's saying has no agenda to it. Now, whether or not you agree with him is a different story, but I encourage you guys to check him out just because, you know what, I'm all for people, big or small, spreading the truth. And anyone who's a fan of this show, I'm a fan of theirs as well. The next person I want to give a quick shout out to is Chris Sims, who's also a fan of the show. And I just want to say, guys, honestly, thank you so much if you've been reaching out to me personally or just asking for shout outs. I appreciate it. So let's dive right into it. Now, if you can recall, or if any of you have seen the film World War Z with Brad Pitt, now, you're going to say, why the hell are you bringing this up? But if you remember the particular scene where Brad Pitt goes to Israel and he is speaking with an agent of the Mossad, this agent was called the 10th Man. He was responsible for thinking of the most preposterous possibilities in any given scenario, specifically within apocalyptic scenarios, and coming up with plans to prevent it in case it happens. So he was essentially the guy where if all 9 men or all 9 Mossad agents agreed that so-and-so was occurring, he was the 10th man to oppose that, to raise awareness in the situation in case there was some type of subversive tactic that would have allowed for those 9 men who thought they were right to be wrong. So let's jump into it. Now, I know there's been a lot of talk lately about China and things like that, and I'm not trying to get political, but it ties into a lot of things. So first we have to understand what mind uploading is. This is a form of what's considered to be pseudoscience. Now, I've spoken about this before in my episode with Project Lace, which is low augmentative crossbreeding experimentation that is a secret project that is in correspondence with the United States, which is why I've said before, it's possible that one of the many reasons, not the only, but one of the many reasons that the United States is not hammering down on China more is not because it matters what president's in the Oval Office, not necessarily. It's because at the deeper levels of things, they're working together. Now, you might say, what the heck does this have to do with frequencies that are coming from outer space? And this is what I want to get to because there's so much to cover here. Now, first off, we have to understand that mind uploading is considered something where you can literally take your brain, your consciousness, and your I guess we could say self persona and upload it to a computer or some type of apparatus where you can then be transferred to another physical body and essentially live forever, so to speak. I mean, this has been the case in the film or the show Altered Carbon on Netflix. Now, we understand that. But then we also have to understand what quantitative easing is. It's a form of banking. And I know you guys might say, what the hell are you talking about? But just bear with me. Quantitative easing is when essentially any government injects a bunch of money into the economy in order to stabilize it because things are dropping so quickly. Now, what we're noticing here is that the United States has been doing that because of what's been going on with COVID. But the point here ultimately is that there's more to it than meets the eye. And so this is how China has a way of attacking the United States and the West in a subversive manner. Right now, with that being said, we also have to understand that because of the $5 trillion that goes through the South China Sea every year, regardless if there is an issue being addressed on a top secret classified level that has to do with these signals from outer space or on a very public level, businessmen, politicians, military contractors, not just within the US, but all around the world, understand that this is imminent to maintaining and stabilizing the world economy and to keep the people suppressed. So in a certain way, okay, quantitative easing through the usage of the South China Sea's trade transactions of $5 trillion every year is a form of keeping people stabilized, even during a time when China's taking so much crap or shit, pardon my English, for what's going on with COVID. Now, this is when we get to the good part. So I'm sure you guys have heard of frequencies that are unexplained coming from different galaxies all the time. with that being said, there's one signal that is coming from the Perseus galaxy that is that of a frequential vibration that allows for some type of mind manipulation to control people, or at least have a subversive reaction to their subconscious that allows them to behave in a way that these frequencies would like them to behave. Now, you're going to say, Dave, okay, what proof do you have of this, or what is the case? Now, I'm not going to mention her name. I might mention it in the description, but I'll think about it after I upload this. But there was a woman who was an investigative reporter for the New York Times who had been fired for essentially going to China, which was her job, to investigate the genetic research and organ harvesting that China was doing. So yes, it has been reported and essentially in a certain way confirmed without the Chinese government saying it, but they're taking prisoners, and not just prisoners that have committed actual crimes, but the Chinese government is taking people who oppose the Chinese Communist Party, and they are putting them in prisons, classifying them as prisoners, and claiming that they're volunteering their organs for organ harvesting and genetic experimentation. Now, yes, are there laws in the West and in Europe where genetic experimentation is cheating God, therefore it cannot be allowed? Absolutely, which is why something like Project LACE is that of a correspondence between the United States government and China going on in China with the Chinese, some of the concentration camps, because they know they can't do it here, and China is such a heavily surveilled state/country. There's no way that even China doesn't care, guys. They're not going to confirm it, but we know it's happening. The New York Times has reported on it, CNN, BBC. When they report on it, you know what's going on. So when this woman, this reporter, went to China, she had a dinner with 2 Chinese Communist Party scientists to discuss organ harvesting. This was, I believe, 5 or 6 years ago. And this was, by the way, at the time when you mentioned to the public that China was harvesting organs, it was laughed at. Okay? At this dinner, she's speaking with them and trying to inquire about the forced organ harvesting. And who knows, to begin with, guys, what the heck China's doing with that. However, these scientists then mention, as they're speaking to one another very quickly, no, let's forget about the organ harvesting. We got to look into harvesting their consciousnesses. And this is where it gets interesting, because this reporter then reports this off the record, because these scientists cannot go on the record, obviously, or else they'd probably be killed, goes back to the United States, to New York, and New York Times headquarters, tells this to her superiors, and they tell her to, quote, let it go, to drop it. Focus on the public end of the organ harvesting. Now, here's the thing, guys. This is what I meant when I said a couple weeks ago that everyone, whether they know it or not, is a conspiracy theorist. Because when agencies and governments are lying to us, and a lot of people are waking up more and more, what we're going to notice here is that everything has become either a lie or a form of manipulated truth. So, why was she told to let the story go? Why was she then fired shortly after? Why, if you research her, she's very hard to find on the public domain of the internet? Why? The New York Times doesn't have any public domain of current and former employees. Wikipedia does, but it's not on Wikipedia. This is very, very shady. And this is not coming from me. This is coming from multiple sources. Now, when we take a step back, what we're also going to notice here is that when we look at the Perseus galaxy, we're going to see that these frequencies are coming in. They seem to be, it is not confirmed, so I will not say it's for sure, they're allegedly harnessing the Chinese satellite, the largest satellite, I'll put the picture up for you guys right now if you're on YouTube, in the world, bouncing off of this satellite, and is then being broadcast onto the rest of the world in another frequential form. So why do these frequencies coincidentally land on the spot that hits this Chinese satellite and then gets broadcast to the rest of the world through traditional radio-like frequencies and radio-based vibrations and vibrational brains, branes, not brains like your mind. Now, when we take a step back, here's what we're going to notice as well. And this may in fact be a coincidence, but I highly doubt it. Project Perseus not only is a project that has to do with this, but it also is a project that occurred back in World War II. Okay? Essentially, or shortly after, my apologies. During World War II, what happened there was that the Manhattan Project, as everyone knows now to be completely public, was the testing of the nuclear bomb. All right? However, Project Perseus allegedly had 1 or 2 Russian agents implanted into the United States Area 51 team, classified team, to then report back to Russia. Now you might say, Dave, what the heck does this have to do with China and the economy and all that? Well, Russia and China for many, many years have gotten along very, very well. Whether it's Putin and President Xi or some of the presidents prior. Do they hate each other? Absolutely. But guess what? They hate the United States and the West even more. So it's very basic, simple strategy. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? You ever see Putin go to China? President Xi gives him a beautiful medal, a friendship medal, those ribbons, those things that they hand out to each other. President Xi goes to Russia. Putin gives him his favorite chocolate cake, the same way Trump did, actually. So you see how it's all tying in. And what we're going to see is that this type of concept filters down to the lower level of the billionaires. We look at Mark Cuban, for example. We look at other billionaires, Bill Gates, who refuse to denounce China, not because of the COVID thing, but because, well, we do business with them, so we got to be careful, this, and that. China's strategy is subversion. So not only could the Chinese government be working with other alien species, and I know this sounds crazy, but again, bear with me. The audience, you guys who have bared with me for so far, will understand where I'm coming from. And I'm not saying that it's just China working with these alien species or these other galaxies to infiltrate the mind subversively. But why is it that right around the same time these signals started coming in, this New York Times reporter overhears at the same dinner table that these two scientists are talking about harvesting consciousnesses? Why isn't there a connection being made there? Why? Because again, if the Chinese government doesn't confirm it, no mainstream media source will back it up. But at the same time, if we don't do reporting the way that we're discussing and encouraging people to do right now, then we're no better than the mainstream media. It's as simple as that, guys. So when we take a look, what we're going to find here, according to Wikipedia, was that, and I quote, Perseus was the codename of a hypothetical Soviet atomic spy that, if real, would have allegedly breached United States national security by infiltrating Los Alamos National Laboratory during the development of the Manhattan Project, and consequently would have been instrumental for the Soviets in the development of nuclear weapons, end quote. Now, here's what we also have to know. Bob Lazar had mentioned as well that there were quote-unquote commies that the United States was working with when they were trying to reverse engineer 9 different UFO craft, all different shapes of different types, some of them look like Die Glock from Germany, others looking like the traditional disc, others looking more like a tube capsule. And Bob Lazar mentions that the United States was working with the commies, working with the Chinese and all that. So my point here is not that China is using these frequencies to infiltrate the US, not specifically. What I'm saying here is that on a lower level, these countries are adversarial, but on a higher level, there's a much bigger play at hand here. Now, when we take a look, what we're going to notice is that when these frequencies hit the satellite, I guarantee you other countries have to be in on this. Regardless if they're enemies or adversaries on the public level, they understand this is bigger than everyone. This is bigger than that. So what arrangements do they have with some Nordics, some Greys, or some other species? It's hard to say because, again, the only public one we know about is the 1954 Greada Treaty with President Eisenhower, and I am certain countries like Russia, Israel, China have signed deals with other extraterrestrial species. Now, what I'm saying here is that this satellite from China, which allegedly may be shutting down soon, which is ironic, maybe it's receiving a bit too much attention, is now being used to send frequencies all over the world into countries that ironically have lowered their DEW weapons defense system to allow these exact type of frequencies to infiltrate their nation in a geographical and physical sense. Why is that the case? That's all I'm asking. That's all I want to know. That's all we want to know. Why is that the case? Now, the next thing I want to mention too is that when we take a step back and we understand that uploading one's consciousness, may have already been done, we need to then understand that this is something that is going on with the collaboration of other world governments. And so that's why they're not coming down hard on China, whether the COVID thing happened or not. China was being attacked before. But the next thing I want to mention as well is that it's ironic because 4 or 5 years ago, if anyone had said, oh, the Chinese government is harvesting organs from people and they may be harvesting consciousnesses, you would have laughed. And I use this example all the time. For those who watch this show often, they'll know. If you said 4 or 5 years ago, the Epstein thing, there was a private island where celebrities and public figures and politicians and people of power would go and rape both underage and adult women, people would laugh. People laughed when they said Bill Clinton was on Epstein's plane 26 times. then the evidence comes out and people realize, holy shit, this is real. And so what I'm trying to say here, and I apologize if I didn't connect the dots as well as I could have just because of the sake of time. What I'm trying to say here is that these frequencies coming in from outer space are harnessing that of subversively inserting itself into the subconsciousness of people all around the world, specifically those within Africa. And isn't it ironic that the Chinese are buying up a boatload of land in Africa? That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm trying to get at here. It's as simple as that. It's got nothing to do with COVID. It's got nothing to do with any of that stuff. But at the same time, we also have to take a step back and say one of the reasons why no government, forget just the US, but no other world government will actually take a legitimate stand against China is because the economies are far too intertwined. And that $5 trillion that goes to and from that South China Sea every single year, that $5 trillion worth of goods, is way too risky, even on a secretive level, to risk stopping. Okay? And so what I'm trying to say here is I'm not trying to fearmonger. I'm not trying to say that, oh, look, China's taking over. I'm not trying to say China's working with aliens to destroy the US. No, I'm saying there's a collaborative effort that has to do with Project Lace that they understand, which is why on both a public and lower level, the United States and other world leaders cannot go after China directly, because at the end of the day, they're all in cahoots with one another when it comes to these projects. And on top of that, one of the reasons, as a friendly reminder to you guys, that Project Lace is occurring in China and not in the United States is because it's way easier to hide things in China, simply because of the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP's surveillance of things. Okay? So I really hope that I presented this as elegantly and as orderly as I could. And there's a lot of things to add up here. We have the Project Perseus having to do with the Russians potentially. We also have Project Perseus coming from the Perseus constellation of stars in a galaxy many light years away that is coincidentally sending extremely accurate frequential signals that are bouncing off of the Chinese satellite and broadcasting everywhere around the world. Okay, so I want you guys to let me know what you think, and please understand that the economy on a public level is intertwined with what's going on an internal level. So again, thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys have a great Sunday afternoon, and we will catch you tomorrow. Thank you.